Still remember the exact moment my son looked me dead in the eyes and said it, cold, clean, and without a shred of hesitation. "You're not getting a dime from Mom's will." No anger, no sadness, just straight-up confidence, like he'd already cashed the check and was daring me to argue. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just dealing with family drama. I was dealing with betrayal, the kind that hits you in the chest and knocks the air clean out of your lungs. This was my kid. The boy I raised, fed, coached, and bailed out more times than I can count. The same kid who used to call me his hero. And now here he was, sitting across from me in a sleek office, dressed sharp, smirking like he'd already won the jackpot. He didn't even flinch when he said it. Just leaned back in his chair like he was watching a bad movie he already knew the ending to. "Dad, you're getting nothing. Zero, zip, nada." I felt my jaw tighten. My heart thumped hard in my chest. Not because of greed, but because of the disrespect. The straight-up audacity. I wasn't asking for money. I wasn't begging. I was just there because the lawyer asked me to come. And yet somehow, my own son was treating me like I was some gold digger trying to cash in on his mom's death. The room felt colder after that. His words hung in the air like smoke. I could hear the hum of the air conditioner, the ticking of the clock, and the echo of every argument his mother and I ever had. I'd been gone for years, yeah. The marriage had crashed and burned. But I never stopped caring, never stopped checking in, never stopped hoping we'd all find some peace. But to him, I was history, a washed-up ex who didn't deserve a thing. He crossed his arms, smug as hell. "Mom made sure of it," he said. "She didn't forget how you walked away. She told me herself you wouldn't get a penny." That's when it hit me. This wasn't grief talking. This was ego. He wasn't mourning his mother. He was guarding his jackpot. He had already spent that money in his head. New car, bigger house, maybe a few flex posts online to show the world how successful he was. And I was just some obstacle he wanted out of the way. I stayed quiet, though, not because I was scared, but because something felt off. Too rehearsed, too confident. People who are telling the truth don't need to say it that loud. I looked around the lawyer's office, the polished desk, the thick folders, the sealed envelopes, and realized this wasn't over, not even close. The lawyer hadn't said a word yet, not one. He just sat there, watching us like a referee, waiting for the right moment to blow the whistle. And that's when it hit me. If my son was this cocky, he must think the paperwork was airtight. He must have read something he thought sealed my fate. But the lawyer's expression? Calm, almost amused. That's when I knew something didn't add up. My son thought he had won, thought I was finished, thought I'd walk out embarrassed and empty-handed. The moment my son thought he had me cornered, the lawyer leaned back and let out a quiet chuckle. Not a mean laugh, just a knowing one. The kind that makes you pause and rethink everything. My son's smug grin faltered immediately. He snapped, "What's so funny?" The lawyer didn't even flinch. "Your confidence is misplaced," he said calmly. "You've seen a version of the will, sure, but not the final one." Boom, that one line hit harder than I expected. My son's face drained of color. The guy who strutted in thinking he had it all figured out suddenly looked like a kid who just realized he failed the final exam. He tried to argue, saying his mom made it clear I'd get nothing. The lawyer, cool as ice, shook his head. Assumptions don't override legal documents. And trust me, she anticipated this whole scene. My son leaned closer to the table, his fingers tapping nervously. She told you what she wanted you to believe." The lawyer cut him off. "Eyes steady. The final will reflect her true intentions, not your assumptions." That's when the air shifted. The lawyer slid a thick folder across the table. My heart skipped. I could feel the tension coil in the room like a live wire. The man who came in, thinking he owned the moment, was now realizing he didn't own a damn thing. "You're saying I'm wrong?" My son's voice cracked. "I'm saying your plan doesn't matter," the lawyer replied, calm but firm. "Your mother prepared for everything, including your little power moves." At that point, my son straightened up, panic creeping in. Every ounce of swagger was gone. The confident kid who thought he had won walked into a trap he didn't even know existed. I watched him, a mix of disbelief and nervousness spreading across his face. And I couldn't help but feel a quiet sense of relief, not because I was getting anything yet, but because the truth was finally breaking through. The lawyer continued, explaining that my ex-wife had updated the will multiple times, quietly, so that it reflected fairness and foresight. She didn't just leave money, he said. She left a plan, one that rewards the right behavior and exposes assumptions for what they are. My son sat back down, face pale and tight with frustration. So, all my assumptions gone? Gone, the lawyer said simply. You underestimated her. You underestimated the law. And most importantly, you underestimated how carefully she planned this entire estate. At that moment, it became crystal clear. The guy who thought he had life figured out was blindsided. Every smug look, every boast, every moment of condescension evaporated. All he had left was a harsh dose of reality, and the understanding that money isn't just about greed. It's about foresight, preparation, and respect for the rules. As I watched him struggle to process the twist, I realized the power had shifted completely. This wasn't over yet, but one thing was obvious. The lawyer's quiet laughter had already flipped the script. Just when my son thought he had the upper hand, the lawyer leaned forward and said, "There's something else you need to see." The room went silent. My son laughed nervously, thinking it was some kind of joke, but the lawyer's expression told me otherwise. He opened another folder and pointed to a page. "This is a contingency clause your mother added months before she passed. Most people miss it, but it changes everything." My son leaned in, squinting at the page. "What's this?" "It's a behavioral clause," the lawyer explained. "If either beneficiary acts greedy, manipulative, or tries to intimidate the other over the inheritance, they forfeit their claim entirely. The money then goes to the other party." My son's face went pale. "You're kidding." "Not even close," the lawyer said calmly. "And by walking in here acting like this was already yours. You triggered it." I felt a mix of shock and awe. My son's smug confidence completely crumbled. He sputtered, trying to argue. "But Mom told me she told you what she wanted you to believe," the lawyer interrupted. "The final will reflects her true intentions, and she planned this carefully, knowing exactly how both of you might react." My son's jaw tightened. His eyes widened. He looked like someone who just realized the rug had been pulled out from under him. Every boast, every condescending comment he made toward me evaporated in an instant. The lawyer slid the document closer to me. "You're now the primary beneficiary," he said. Shock, disbelief. My son jumped up, pacing and muttering, "This can't be real. She wouldn't do this to me. I'm her son." The lawyer shook his head. "She did. And she was intentional. This isn't revenge, it's accountability." It hit me then how brilliant she was. My ex-wife had foreseen every possible move, every attempt at manipulation. She didn't just leave money, she left a lesson wrapped in legal precision. The clause wasn't about spite. It was about making sure her wishes were honored and her values respected. My son's face turned red with anger and shame. He muttered accusations, but I stayed calm. I wasn't gloating. This was bigger than money. It was about seeing justice in action. As the lawyer gathered his papers, he said, "Some people inherit money, others inherit lessons." And in that moment, it hit me. My ex-wife had given me more than an inheritance. She had given me closure, vindication, and a sense of fairness that my son had tried to deny. The reality was harsh, but clear. The hidden clause had flipped everything. My son, who thought he had it all figured out, walked away empty-handed. And I walked away realizing the smartest, most powerful moves are often made quietly, with foresight and strategy, not ego. That day I finally understood. Life isn't about who shouts the loudest or walks in with the most confidence. It's about planning, patience, and letting truth take its course. My ex-wife had mastered that game, and my son learned the hard way that arrogance doesn't beat wisdom. By the time the lawyer closed the folder, the energy in the room had completely changed. My son's smug confidence was gone, replaced by disbelief and panic. The guy who strutted in, thinking he owned the moment, was now realizing he had zero control over the outcome. The lawyer stood up, straightening his suit. "That concludes everything. All documentation will be filed by the end of the day. My son jumped up, pacing, muttering under his breath. This is insane. She wouldn't do this. I'm her son. The lawyer didn't flinch. She did. And she was intentional. Every word hit like a brick. My son's panic turned to frustration. So you just walk away with everything? He demanded, looking at me with a mix of rage and disbelief. I shook my head slowly. I didn't walk away with anything. Your mom made her choice. That was the moment it hit him fully. The plan he thought was his had completely collapsed. He shot me a glare, muttering accusations about manipulation and long games. But facts didn't matter anymore. His ego, built on assumptions and entitlement, had crumbled. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Silence followed, heavy and absolute. I stayed behind, heart pounding, letting it sink in. The lawyer packed up and said she wasn't seeking revenge. She was setting boundaries and ensuring accountability. I nodded. Finally, I understood the bigger picture. This wasn't about money. It was about principle, about fairness, about respect. My ex-wife had planned this meticulously to make sure the right lesson was learned, that arrogance, greed, and entitlement wouldn't get a free pass. As I walked out into the sunlight, the tension lifted. Behind me was chaos, bitterness, and a son who had underestimated life's consequences. Ahead of me, peace and closure. For the first time in years, I realized the real inheritance wasn't the money at all. It was clarity, justice, and the satisfaction of knowing the truth had finally come to light. Life had flipped the script, and my son had learned a harsh lesson. Arrogance doesn't win. Planning and foresight do, and standing there, I finally felt free.